Good evening, everyone. How are we doing today? Hello to the two viewers watching. Yeah, let's not waste any time. Oops. Okay, so welcome to a reading corner, so to speak. Um, so yeah, if you can see below, we will be reading probably one of my favorite creepypastas ever due to how ridiculous it is. Like, it tries. So, hello, Classic, welcome. We're just getting started. So, as the title says, we are reading Blood Whistle, a Super Mario Bros. 3 creepy pasta. Ooh. And yeah, it's one of those stories that tries a little too hard to be scary. In fact, it tries so hard that it backpedals. But anyway, let's not waste any more time. For those of you who would like to follow along, here is the list. Here is the creepypasta here so you can follow along. Anyway, let me see. Where is it? I've got a lot of windows open. And we'll get some appropriate music going. Okay, how are the audio? All right, here we go. Forward edit. This is the recorded blog of a college student who was playing a modified version of Super Mario Bros. 3 on his computer. Shortly after submitting the last entry, he committed suicide in his dorm room. June 5th, 2012. A friend of mine recently sent me what he claims to be a scary Super Mario Bros. 3 hack that he wanted me to try out because he didn't have the courage. I started this blog to record my progress through the game. He got this from a site that's no longer active. And I've seen some pretty scary occurrences with emulator games before. But just look at Ben. Side note, Ben was a cartridge, an N64 cartridge that was bought from like a black market or something. So, oh, thank you. So, already, but anyway, all that aside, however, was something definitely off about this ROM. Its title was SMB3 BW. Anyhow, I won't play any today, as I'm quite busy with college work and such, but I will definitely start tomorrow. June 6th, 2012. I played some of the game today. Obviously, my friend was misinformed, as I had played all the way through 1-3, and I had found nothing irregular. All of the sprites and levels and sounds didn't have a fluke to their name. Wait a minute. A secret! That must be how you have to unlock it. I swear, you guys, I'll find the warp whistle tomorrow and see what creepy secrets this game has to hide. Look for tomorrow's post. It won't disappoint. Maybe this will explain what the BW in the title stands for. June 7th, 2012. I wish I hadn't unlocked that secret. This game will be the pain of my existence. I'll try my best to explain what happened and what will certainly entail. I don't know if any of you will believe me, but this sick mockery of one of my childhood favorites must be exploited and never be seen by the eyes of any other breathing man on God's green earth. And Todd, what I'll call my friend for the sake of privacy and possibly security, do not send that link to anyone else. You'll see why below. I entered the castle stage. Knowing its only secret was the warp whistle, I disposed of a dry bones before donning a raccoon tail. With a running start, I was flying above the stage until I hit the secret area. My whole life, before I hit up on my arrow keypad, was completely different. I was happy. I was normal. I could wake up in the morning recognizing my own reflection, being absolute about my own safety. Now it's lies. All lies. I know that as of what happened today, my life will become an infernal hell in which every day will be a futile struggle to retain my own sanity. After finishing this wretched collage of electronic dejection, I will embrace death like a long-lost lover with open arms. Now, to get on with what had come to pass. The blocks that lined the wall were gloomy, albeit polished obsidian black. Mario's skin now had a grayish tint to it. But that wasn't what was wrong with that picture. The music was a sped up version of the normal bonus room theme. Toad's skull was cracked open and profusely bleeding, spilling blood onto the floor and making the room slippery, like an ice stage. His mouth was also agape and spewing blood on the floor. The blood had an eerie, reflective quality that should have been graphically impossible for an 8-bit game like Mario 3. I walked up to him to see what it is he might say. What he had to offer was this. Blood whistle. Hear its cry. I ran towards the chest to see its contents. The chest was drenched in reflective, realistic blood of the same type emanated from the orifices and exposed cranium of the poor little mushroom-headed fellow. I pressed onward. I ran through it to discover its dark secret. Its twisted surprise. I wasn't prepared for the following events. A blood-soaked warp whistle ominously rose from what I now believe to be the deepest crevice of hell. It blipped twice, as the normal whistle would. That, my fellow reader, was the only normality of what I have played today. It played a deep tune that I can't get out of my head. The whistle descended, violently striking Mario in the chest. He unleashed a blood-curdling scream as it went into his and back out of his chest. This cry wasn't 8-bit at all. It wasn't even cartoonesque. It was the sound of unfiltered anguish, of utter agony. His expression reflected the same. To end my experience on this perverse version of something I once loved, Mario was transported to the warp zone of the blood whistle. I call it this because it only had the cookie-cutter outline of the quaint island. The water consisted solely of the same blood aforementioned in my encounter with the whistle. Corpses of Koopas and other enemies of Mario were scattered afloat near the shores. White menacing eyes glared at me between the waves, surfacing just to cast their evil glance at Mario. Or me. I can't be sure at this point. All the worlds were indicated by their respective numbers, and all of the dots were crimson. At this point, I noticed yet another abnormality, this time concerning the dot for World 8. Besides, there were two 8-bit patches of fire that twisted and contorted in place. Without me pressing any buttons, the whistle stabbed Mario in the ribs. This cued him to move to the World 2 dot. Refusing to pay any further attention to the horrors that surely await in the distorted desert, I saved the game and quit. I played more than enough of my fill for today. I guess I figured out the acronym from the ROM title meant Blood Whistle the hard way. Despite the horrors that plague this abomination, I will continue to subject myself to this suffering for the sake of all of you. Well, also mine. It'll help me keep track of the days, and maybe this desperate attempt to cling to my stable frame of mind won't be in total vain. There are 5,000 people that have followed this blog in the 2 days it's been up. After this poignantly interesting post, I'm hoping to have some more. For those of you following my post, read tomorrow's and share with your friends. I need you to expose the stark luridness of this shell of something I once knew and loved. Well, June 8th, 2012. Well, I did it. I managed to clench the fickle fibers of my perception of reality long enough to play through World 2. I've come to the conclusion that whoever made this is completely and utterly deranged. There's been a rusted gear or a broken spring in the mechanics of their sadistic mind. Their only purpose in creating this mod was to mentally and psychologically flagellate the naive soul poor enough to take the bait of its mysterious origin. Well, I'm certainly naive enough to fall into that category. I digress. To the experience. I find myself asking how I could have missed such major things like this yesterday when I saved the game in this world. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Blood of the same texture from before was just splattered across the desert sands as sand itself was. Solitary eyes watched me from the pyramids. Pentagrams and other satanic symbols were also infrequent in the environment. Could this hack be the work of the Illuminati? Okay, enough pondering. I need to finish this grim tale. Skeletons of Koopas littered the bleak landscape. There was a distinct disturbance with Mario's appearance, though he looked starved and parched, as if one would typically look after a few days in the desert. Mario then moved to the 2-1 block without my command, and the music began to play shortly after. This was a reverse version of the overworld theme. Whispers and other paranormal phenomena could be heard playing in harmony with the music, saying cryptic things. After a minute, I began to record the sound. I'll upload it as soon as possible. But the most distinct thing I heard was... One of the most distinct things I kept hearing was Let the whistle guide you. It... And the instrument of blood plays the sweetest tune. This creeped me out, needless to say. But this, of all things, wouldn't prevent me from playing out the remainder of this game. The stage itself was very scary. The sky was grayish blue, accompanied by an almost white sun. The colors weren't bright or cheery in the slightest. The pyramid blocks were faded and cracked, and the wood blocks were obviously rotting. Mario's sprite was visibly starving and pleading for thirst. The fire creatures fixedly stared at me like a shark stares at a school of fish, seeming to know who their next meal was. The neutral expressions of the Koopas had changed into ones of converged disgust and loathe. I had obtained the raccoon by now, so I ran along the pipe-looking platform and took off. I flew for a little while, which was nice. Mario's face changed as well, being the normal happy smile you usually see throughout the entire game. I relished in the few moments of happiness I saw from this game. These moments were mercilessly ended within the course of a few seconds. The sky flashed a gloomy black before the blood whistle came and impaled the poor plumber yet again. Mario fell, his corpulent figure going limp until he hit the ground with a thump that I swore I could feel. He was miraculously alive. His body twitching in a feeble attempt to rise. A fire creature jumped on Mario, who was now pinned to the ground and screaming in pain. His scream was bitterly realistic. It reeked of such insufferable pain. It hurts me now to describe the sheer degree of torture this character was going through. There he was, burning and seething in pain, and there I sat, completely powerless, forced to watch what I thought was the end of his trials on World 2. I was so wrong. The level select came into view. Whistle threw back. Mario was transported to one of the pyramid levels. When the level started, the background was an egregious smoke-filled black. Bursts of lightning filled the sky with illumination. Winged demons in flight were visible upon these strikes. Also in the sky glowed stagnantly lit pentagrams and 666. Mario was being carried by two of Bowser's sons up to one of the pyramid structures. However, this particular structure was vastly different than the regular ones. The bricks were cracked and faded with age. The edges were jagged and dried with blood caked each block. Nothing but a heavy drum beat and the sounds of thunder played in the background. The thunder didn't play in unison with lightning. As happens in most games, there was an eerily realistic pause between the flare of lightning and the boom of thunder. As the top of the structure was reached, I saw the worst thing yet. Bowser towered above everyone else, intimidating and terrible. Below stood four of his sons, two of which had carried Mario: Morton, Iggy, Ray, and Von Koopa. Above the entire scene were the words "Blood Whistle" in bright red neon letters. Bowser's face had to have been 10 times more evil than I've ever seen it. His green shell was cracked, and his white spine had been dipped in blood. Blood was fresh on his teeth, also as his serpentine tongue licked them, making clear his intentions on what to do with Mario after he had disposed of him. It was then I came to a dooming realization. Mario can't die. The game won't let him. However many things are thrown at him, in however many ways he is brutally maimed, mortality will not escape him. For a time, that is. He will continue to be sustained to whatever dark force or sick mind that drives the rest of these occurrences to passing until the game's eventual end, in which he will ruefully and painfully perish. Now that that's been said, to continue today's experience, suddenly, Von Koopa produced a dagger. It gleamed with uncanny realism in the light of the blood whistle sign that loomed above. After a brief pause, he began to slice Mario's chest open. Mario again brayed a fearful cry. A cry that implied he would die only to endure torture of 10 times the magnitude. Tears streamed down his face as Von removed his heart, still pumping. He handed it to Bowser, who ate it with a crunching chomp. His sons laughed as he did this, blood flowing from Mario's exposed abdomen. With a bark from their twisted father, their sons shamelessly began to regurgitate and tear apart what was open. As they were doing this, Mario slowly turned his head towards me and uttered a single question through tears and blood. Why? I myself asked the very same question. Why would they treat him as an animal? If not less, for their amusement. Why would someone initiate the genesis of such a horrid contraption? A contraption in which life and death have no meaning, and are manipulates, a contraption in which concepts such as moral, remorse, and mercy are completely foreign. It makes me shudder to think that there is someone sick enough out there to put a character through this kind of unbearable hell just to sit back and laugh. It makes me absolutely sick to my core. Oh, that reminds me of another thing. You're probably wondering as to why I complacently talk about Mario as if he's a human being. A human who suffers pain, sorrow, depression, starvation, and thirst like the rest of us. A human who is also capable of feeling happiness, remorse, goodwill, and love like anyone else. It's because I am thoroughly convinced that he is. Please, don't stop following this blog because you think I'm insane. That will come later. I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that inside this game is a character with a complex range of emotions, someone who feels like you and me. But it's just a game, right? It's just a contrived mixture of code and data put together to present words and images, correct? Wrong. I know with everything inside of me that Mario has to be alive. I have seen him truly happy and truly sad, and at one point, I may have seen him truly angry. He feels like any other living, breathing human being. I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know how something so human could rise from something so truly inhuman. A character with a soul seemed completely impossible to me before I played this hack. I now have a goal with this game. To keep this poor creature alive. I suppose I know the real truth. I'll see you all tomorrow. Same place. Same time. June 9th, 2012. It's me again. I had a horrible range of nightmares last night. They're a direct result of playing this game. Some really weird stuff also went down. Before I get into today's gameplay, I'll have to go through them with you, so I'll have an interactive record of my dreaming habits related to this game. I myself am having a hard time as to how they were so close to home, and what they mean for my seemingly inevitable downfall. Before I tell this, I have to let you in on a piece of relevant information. In the 4th grade, I used to play the recorder. Every kid had to learn some musical instrument, and I liked wind instruments because of their method of play, appearance, and sound. Such is the irony of the wind instrument that has caused me all of this grief. In my dream, I was playing the instrument. I I was my I was playing the instrument in a dark room. I was my fourth grade self, just coolly playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Out of nowhere, I began to cough. I had choked on some blood that had materialized within and around my recorder. It covered it and soon filled it. Blood began to pour out in great quantity out of all of the recorder's holes. Soon it began to float in midair and hover. A few seconds had passed, and then it struck me in the chest. It impaled me, going directly through my heart and every other vital artery one could think of. I woke up, the sheets plastered to my bare chest with sweat. I was completely fine, not a scratch on me. As I sat there in bed, afraid of how I'm sure the game did this, or maybe it was just me losing my sanity, I began to hear a noise coming from my laptop. It was closed, but a faint muffled humming sound was clearly audible. I warily approached my computer, the machine almost looking alive. Then I opened it. It was a picture of SMB3 Mario, Raccoon Mario sprite on a black backdrop. He was chained up by his legs and feet, and the chains reached outside of the screen. The blood whistle sat as the centerpiece of it all through Mario's chest. The tune of the blood whistle began to play over and over. The loop that only exacerbated the sound within the walls of my psyche. I tried exiting out of whatever this program might have been, but the window wouldn't close. I eventually had to take out my laptop battery, which didn't sit well with my OS. Luckily, I didn't lose any files. Now, for the gameplay. I was on a weak imitation of the World 3 map. The water was none other than blood. Ravenous fish jumped out of the water, looks of primal hunger on their faces. There was something off about Mario's map representation that I noticed right away. Along with his raccoon tail, the blood whistle was now a permanent fixture through his body. His skin had dulled a little from his prior shade of gray, now more outwardly noticeable. His mustache now had dots of red clung to it as well. Without my or Mario's control, needless to say, I was moved to the first underwater stage. A cherry red tint absorbed the entire screen. This was to be expected, as the water looked blood-ridden from the outside as well. I swam down from the left side of the level to get a fire mushroom. A flower! As soon as Mario got it, and his outfit changed, he got an evil simper on his face. He looked at me and said, "Revenge? Yes?" I confirmed his suspicions, and then we set off for the danger that lurked near. The fish cast malevolent gazes at Mario as he swam by, incinerating them. His normal happy smile returned, so did mine. The annihilation of these carnivorous critters didn't last long before both Mario and I faced a hellish dilemma. There was a large fish with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Below him were two power blocks. Well, you asked for it. Well, I only... Well, there's only two of us today, so better get used to it, I guess.
Alright, where were we? Okay. fish. The fish swam around from its position in the top of us and began to tear off Mario's limbs. But by this time, a group of fish had congregated around Mario and the entire scene. Their laughs were deep and short, registering as barks for the 8-bit sound processor. Mario's unable body wobbled as he bled out, spewing black across the red. When he finally died, the big fish began to laugh. After a couple of seconds of Mario's limbs regrew, with the blue block remaining, I hit it to get this all over with. Bubbles stopped coming from Mario's mouth. He cried out for help, but that only made the problem worse. He sucked in tons of water, his hands around his neck. He began to grow from gray to blue. In a matter of moments, he kicked and fought, but he only wore himself down. He got angry. He began to incinerate random fish that had gathered in the crowd. The fish began to laugh louder. For every fish he killed, 2 more appeared in its place. After a while, he just gave up. I watched Mario utter his last gurgle on World 3, the blood whistle stabbing and taking him away. I saved and quit with haste. See you all tomorrow. What the hell am I reading? June 10th, 2012. Campus police gave me a visit today. Apparently one of you had reported my comments related to suicide and claimed I was insane because you clearly are. As a result, I have eliminated all personal information from this blog. I have located the person who reported me and banned him. I also have an IP tracker, so don't any of you try that. Speaking of followers, 50,000? I never expected this page to accumulate this many active viewers. Probably not for the reason you're thinking of. Wherever this popularity or notoriety came from, I'm grateful. Now, for today's gameplay. After today, I'll be lucky to finish this game. Princess Toadstool's letter appeared after the previous screen from Mario from World 3 faded out. She was squirming and shifting around. Bowser's hand covered her mouth and nose, but it was easy to see the fear in her eyes. They darted left and right in stark, true fear. Bowser continued to have that sadistic smile on his face as he struggled with her. After about a minute and a half, Peach began to change. Her eyes grew an ominous greed. I think they meant red. As she pushed Bowser's arm away with inhuman strength, she cackled like a loon, blue veins bulging so noticeably that they were clearly visible through her white satin gloves. Bowser began to cower in timidity. The text on the letter said only this: Blood whistle. Hear its cry. Peach. The letter's scene was abruptly cut off, and the World 4 level select map was brought into view. Goombas and Koopas of all sizes appeared, furious and hungry as ever. This addition made sense. This was the giant tiny world. The shown enemies would be dimensioned as such. The normal green grass was withered and dead. The small patches of water were blood. Mario was still in the fireball fatigues that he donned in World 3. When compared to the other worlds, the map view for this one was vastly less disturbing. I would go as far as to call this tolerable. Mario moved towards 4-1, into whatever nightmarish scenario this stage had to offer. The stage had the usual kinks of any level in this game. The sky was black, which made the white clouds vibrantly contrast. A reverse version of the ground level once again played. The wood, as it has been before, was decaying and wasting away beneath Mario's feet. The pipes were faded and cracked in various places. All the enemies still possess the same carnivorous looks of their inner-game counterparts. There was, oddly enough, a startling abundance of them. Koopas and Goombas danced around in a ritualistic manner. Mario was visibly petrified as he tried to avoid them, my arrow keys keeping them inches away from his life. Amidst all of the din, there hovered a solitary power of Brock. It was regular in appearance, nothing was outwardly off about this, which greatly surprised me, not knowing what horrid item it contained. I bumped into it in blind vein that maybe it could help me. You can most likely infer that the, intonation I made in the preceding paragraph that I was completely mistaken. What appeared next was what I dreaded. That damn whistle. It was sitting there, blood washing over it as it rose from the yellow square. It sat there, almost beckoning my name. With the imposing enemies, I knew I had no choice. I took the weapon from its place, fruitlessly hoping for the best, readily expecting the worst. The on-screen foes ceased all activity. Their faces returned to a neutral bank state. 5 minutes, they stood in place, like this, not moving a muscle. I jumped around and tried to kill them, but to no avail. It's almost as if they were frozen within the confines of time itself, as if specifically for them. An interstellar and physical continuity came to a careening halt. Then they began to move. After the first couple had did it, I realized what was truly going on. This was a mass suicide. Most of them had jumped in the nearest hole, but others performed incredible feats of acrobatics and medical possibilities. One Koopa was bashing his head on a pipe. Another Goomba jumped 6 or 7 times his own height, turned around in the air, and sent blood flying everywhere with a great splat. Soon all the enemies were dead. Their remains were spontaneously upchucked from the trench below. A grisly mixture of guts and gore littered the entire remainder of the level. Mario shuffled through the remains, horrified, with tears streaming on his face throughout. Random, deep, bassy tones played with nothing else to accompany. Realistic, squishy sounds were emitted every time Mario took a step in the scattering carnage. He continued to cry for the duration of the level. The whistle faded into view and followed Mario a few inches above his head, like a pestilential virus. After he cleared it, of course, the whistle went straight into his chest as Mario was headed to World 5. The game has a habit of putting me where it needs to be, so I closed the window without saving. Witnessing all of that death really wrecked my nerves. Sure, it might be a game, but with the things this game had to show me, with the has had to present me, I'm starting to lose my perception of reality. I'm starting to wonder to myself what is real and what is inside the computer. These two things are quickly fusing into one. The lines, they're blurred. Pretty soon, the days will start fading together, and by then, I'll have lost all sense of reality. I hope to see you all tomorrow. I don't know how much longer I can put up with this game. No, it's not a game. I couldn't tell you what this is. This is garbage. This is what it is. June 11th. Today is being D-Day fit because I'm pitting one hell of a war against this game, and a losing one at that. Woos. At least there are no more mishaps with all of you so far, which puts me at rest. As of today's gameplay, I fear for my own life. I feel as if something is coming after me, lurking, seeking me out to make immediate my demise. Never before has anything like this ever happened. Never before has anything electronic made me truly afraid, truly scared. I most likely will get no sleep tonight. Nothing in particular occurred. It's just you'll find out below. I was in the middle of the cloud portion of World 5. The sky theme played, except it was drastically slow, and demonic whispers were clearly audible. The whispers were almost the same as the ones I heard back in World 2. Mario was outfitted with a Tanuki suit, which naturally suited the environment. There was nothing there except two things: a red dot and a card game. The card game icon looked similar enough to its regular game clone, except the spades rolled across a red background instead of a blue one. Now, for whatever reason, I was allowed to choose which path to take. I chose to do the card game, hoping it would serve as some sort of reprieve from all the madness. That was not the right choice. Toad didn't explain the rules of the game like normal. Instead, I was plunged into the rolling slots. Besides the slots was a risky scenario. Toad was on a guillotine. He looked at the camera with timid, teary eyes. He was also vigorously shaking his head. He shook his hands in a futile effort to free himself from this appalling apparatus. But nothing came of it. The entire picturing calmed me so much I didn't even notice the slots. I cautiously pressed them, trying as best I could to line them up given the stress of this situation. I failed, and had to pay the personal price. The blade fell with breathtaking speed. Toad was beheaded right there and then. His head did a couple of spins in the air before landing it in a conveniently placed nearby basket. The initial spills splayed blood across the white room. Blood filled the basket and filled it up. Toad's body sprayed blood from the stump where his head used to be. Out of nowhere, the blood whistle came down and struck his torso. The scene faded out, and back to the map, I was moved to the only remaining destination in World 5. Silent lightning streaked across the licorice black sky. Gray clouds and Mario were the only other consistently visible things. As far as everything goes, silhouettes of winged demons flew down and danced in the background. I tried turning into the stone structure that the Tanuki suit is so famous for, but it failed. No music played. None at all. The demons would be heard whispering in what sounded like a variety of language. Spanish, German, and Latin were the most prevalent ones. A primal fear of the unknown gripped me as I blindly navigated the level. Judging by the look on Mario's face, it plagued him also. This stemmed from childhood, which made it all the worse. I not only felt like Mario was in danger, I felt like my livelihood and well-being were in danger. What? At that moment, when the demons swooped down, I would say the most accurate way to describe this creature would be a miniature Cthulhu. Its claws plucked out Mario's eyes, making them profusely bleed. He unleashed an ephemeral, bone-chilling cry. After the searing pain relented, Mario trudged on. His face was now void of any and all expression. It was because he knew as well as I did that he would be torn apart brutally and slowly, but it would happen. After a few more seconds, the second demon came. It was identical in appearance to the first. It swooped down with grim black bat wings and did its portion of the damage. After it was said and done, the thing had torn Mario's arms off Mario stopped dead in his tracks. He sobbed loudly, knowing the worst was yet to come. I felt so sorry for him that the words escaped me. He continued on with a morose look. His normal walk slowed to a shuffle. A few seconds after that, the final solitary specter came down and did his work with one big slash. Mario was now without his legs, and his lump of a body sat there. He sadly wept in utter despair. He knew the end was near. He He turned to me and choked out this. I'm sorry you had to witness this. Everything. Those were our last spoken words on World 5 before a gaggle of Hell's minions descended and tore apart what remained of him. His entrails were liberally exposed as they regurgitated in their cruel feast. You do know that regurgitate means vomit, right? When the dust cleared, a mere shell of him remained. All you could see of his open stomach were his open spine and back muscles. As I had predicted, the blood whistle came to transport him into whatever hellish situation it contemplated would be worse than the last. Consider it sheer luck if I make another post tomorrow. If I do, it may be my last. Well, have a good Halloween. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, June 12th. I'm starting to not care anymore. So am I. I'm in the throes of such a severe depression. It's all starting to fade away. Everything. School, friends, family. It's safe to say this game is single-handedly ruining my life. Such sadness has never become of me before in my life. My grandfather died when I was young, but that didn't close to equate what I'm feeling right now. It's a direct result of the level that I played today, which I'll get into right now. World 6 appeared. Ice was everywhere. This was the one part that correlated to the unaltered version. Nothing else did. The ice was none other than frozen realistic blood. Crystallized pieces of crimson droplets bordered the ice blocks. Blood filled in the small pockets of water that were, of course. There was only a solitary dot on the map. Mario entered it, and I knew that whatever was to pass, it would be tenfold of what had already happened. Pure sable white was the only thing that constituted it of the backdrop. Blocks of blood ice served as the slippery ground. Mario slid along as I controlled him. He appeared happy, overjoyed might be more accurate. He had nothing to deal with, just him in the open space. 5 minutes later, then 10. All the way through, Mario was happy as I let him run around and fly. He had regained the raccoon tail. It seems like he had all the time in the world. The clock ticked, and all seemed right in the game. Making my way through the level, I found out it had no end. Time, oddly enough, would turn out to be the ultimate enemy. At the 20-minute mark, a tempest began to pick up. A flurry of snow and wind ensnared Mario, and he began to curl his tail. His teeth chattered and his body shook. He soon had to sit down. Mario and I soon figured out how the game planned out to snuff him out this time. With ice and time. He sat and tried to heat himself. This, needless to say, was less than a feeble attempt. Nothing but creepy bass beats played from World 5. Mario's skin soon began to turn a light blue. Nevertheless, he still sat and brooded in the icy cold. It was then that the utmost feeling of sadness had encapsulated me. I couldn't fathom my sympathy, couldn't begin to describe how bad I felt at the fact that his death was absolutely inevitable and there was nothing I could do to stop it except turn the game off, maybe? I don't know. Just simply watch in shock and dejected awe. Frostbite soon took his hands. 10 minutes after that, World 6 Mario was no more. Just a frozen block of a man sitting there in the middle of an infinite winter wilderness. After the sadness came feelings of sheer loneliness. Okay. I felt abandoned and alone, just like Mario sitting in the middle of that ice field. I felt as if no one would come to save me from the torture of this game. The blood whistle came down and made a chunk sound as it impaled his chest, taking him to the next level of hell. I closed the emulator window like always, and ended this self-subjected torture. I will bring myself to play this game tomorrow, but mark my words, I'll play the last tomorrow, and then this vlog will hopefully live on in my memory, so my tribulation can be seen by the world. Be here. Same time, same place. June 13th, 2012. Just gonna make sure. Just trying to make sure the audio levels are good. Alright. It is ironic, indeed, that today is June 13th. The unlucky number. The unlucky day? I suppose today isn't completely horrible. Today is the last day I had to play this wretched game. This horrifying, absurd remake of what I used to see as a wonderful game will soon be out of my life, along with everything else. With this being the last post, I suppose I can finally be honest about my true intentions. Ever since I finished World 2, I'm going to take my own life. Okay, bye. This game has caused me sorrow on such an ineffable level that there's no other option. Life will never be the same. Mom, Dad, I love you. Michael and Kelsey, you guys be good. Listen to Mom and Dad. They have a lot of valuable lessons to teach you. Lessons I learned, but can now never apply again. Now for what you 75,000 followers bullshit read this post for. The rest of the game. Hell itself is what the game brought me to. I suppose that this was intention to convey World 8. No, not hell. Hey, Twinkle Toes, you want to finish this stupid story?
Gladly. Bodies were chained up in the background, enduring a myriad of tortures. The only pain wasn't strictly felt from injuries, though. The coughs, dying wheezes, and vomiting in the background reeked of pestilence and suffering. Fires emblazoned certain people as well. The flames had an actual burning quality to them, not like a regular 8-bit fire. Flesh, eyes, and other internal organs and tissues constituted the walls and ground. if the hell I'm certainly going to exist. I think it looks something like this. Mario stood before possessed Princess Peach. Her dress was ripped in several places and splattered with blood. Her eyes gleamed red, the flames casting an evil, maniacal allure to her appearance. Bowser and his 6 sons were tied to wooden poles with terrified looks on their faces. Wendy, for some reason, didn't appear anywhere in this game. She was the smart one. In one hand, Peach brandished a sizable dagger. In the other, the blood whistle. She walked over to Bowser and looked him in the eyes. Technical limitations slightly hindered the interpretation of what events passed, but it was easy to see enough to understand what was going on. Through his gag, Bowser pleaded with her not to harm him. She brought the knife close to him, and he froze up. He was obviously paralyzed with fear. Her mouth got close to his ear, and text rolled along the bottom of the screen, conveying the text of what played out given the sound limitation. This is what enabled Mario to speak in the past. He whispered. Bowser's innards spilled onto the floor. In a great heap, he let out a monstrous 8-bit roar of pain as this happened. Peach laughed, her eyes reflecting whatever evil had possessed her. The princess proceeded to eviscerate all 6 of his other sons. Mario did nothing but look on in horror as his mortal enemies were torn apart by a woman he had once loved very much. His face soon contorted into one of loathing. He had come all this way to find out the very girl he wished to save had been taken over by an extraterrestrial evil. An evil that would not only harm Mario, but me as well. The sort of evil that doesn't go away when you turn off the game. The kind of dark force that follows you into your bedchambers and steals your soul. Princess Peach paused for a couple of seconds, then came at Mario with a knife. "Hey there, Mario," she said as she toyed with the knife. They got a little sharp with me, so I pushed them over the edge. I tried to move Mario, but nothing happened. He stood there, afraid of what she would do. She brutally slashed open his arms, legs, and abdomen. Shortly thereafter, the princess produced some salt from her billowing dress and sprinkled it all over him. He screamed again, unmoving. Mama! The Princess Peach you used to know is long gone. The power of the blood whistle consumed that girl and made way for me. Speaking of which, she continued as she produced the blood whistle. Here it is. Hear its cry. With a mocking kiss on the cheek, she began to play Mario the perverse song of the blood whistle. Its note rotted away with the last reserve of good in me. He was heaved by an invisible force into the flames. He cried out as they consumed him. Peach choked the whistle, making it strike him directly into the heart. He continued to wallow in utter anguish as she walked away, as she laughed. He looked into my eyes and poured me this parting message via the text at the bottom of the screen. Do not let your life be as painful as mine was. I do not hold any reservations against you, as you tried your best to keep me alive. I commend you for that. Goodbye, Bradley, and good luck. The tune of the blood whistle continued to play as the screen panned out of Mario's hell. How he knew my name was Bradley continues to befuddle me. How he could have such depth, such personality. I don't know whether this was the result of the game being as haunted as it truly is, or the fact that someone could have been captured inside this ROM. Whatever the reason is, of everything that has come to pass with this abomination, I'm glad I'm finally done. I have made all of my goodbyes at the beginning of this post. I hope one of you takes time to save this blog, or at the very least, to show the world the true hell I have put myself through for no good reason. I sure hope that the demented creator of this game isn't festering in the same hell I'm headed for. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Aftermath edit. This blog was the last recorded statement of Bradley before his death. His roommate discovered him 4 hours after he made the last post. Bradley committed suicide using a recorder that he plunged through his trachea. And that was Blood Whistle. What garbage. With a recorder, I know. So, I'm just gonna repeat what the artist said. They really overdid it with the gore. Gore in horror is kind of like an ingredient to a recipe. If you overdo it on an ingredient, it'll ruin the recipe. Also, if you overdo it, the impact on gore's impact, if you use it too much, it will lessen. It's like eating ice cream. If you have ice cream too many times, too often, you'll get sick of it. But you gotta admit, it was a funny read. And all this could have been solved if they just turn off the game. That's another thing. The protagonist was brain dead. And we're only an hour in. So, how do you guys feel about another creepypasta? Another stupid pasta? There's another one we had in mind, called Instant Death Disease. Oh, not from this one, not from fandom. Alright, Instant Death Disease. I was a worker, working at Cokeham Laboratories, Wales. We work with drugs and medical elements, creating cures and vaccines. My boss told me that whatever I do, I should never tell anyone about what we are doing. He began acting strangely only a few weeks ago, when we began Project Axolotl. We were aiming to give humans the ability to regenerate lost limbs. But it went wrong. Horribly wrong. My boss called me up to see him. He is a tall man with dark hair. He told me that there seemed to be a problem with testing Area 5B, where my best friend was working. Of course, I immediately took the job of going down there and checking with him if all was good. It was not. My friend was sweating terribly and breathing heavily. His hands were shaking, and he backed away from the testing area. I had never been in a testing area. Well, not while there was a professor at work anyway. I worked upstairs, where we formed chemical combinations and researched, dissected, and examined. I thought that in the testing area, we'd be testing on animals, no matter how cruel that sounds. It sounded a whole lot better than what they were actually doing. Testing on humans. He backed away from the glass panel, and I stared through, asking what was wrong. His hands trembled, and he tried to pull me away, telling me not to look. The humans were there, all dead. I was immediately sickened. The idea of testing on each other sounded horrible to me. And I noticed that one was alive. She held her child in her arms. We were also testing on small children. Suddenly, she looked at the corpses. She looked at us and mouthed something. I looked away and didn't see. The sight of death itself grew too much for me. But I heard a sickly groan from my friend. Dread filled me. I grabbed him by the shirt and shook him. He gave a hollow rattle. As if there were no internal organs in him. I felt the sudden need to get as far away as I could. I cut my hands over my ears and closed my eyes, running, although bumping into walls, all the way back to my boss's office. I told him frantically what happened, waving my arms madly. My boss's eyes opened wide, but then he smiled. He grinned. He began laughing. That laugh was not of mirth. It was of insanity. It drove me mad. His demonic chuckles screaming through the room. He explained. We had been forming a disease, a new, special disease. It would instantly kill our opponents. He had injected one dose into test subjects in 5B, then told one of the men to read off a card. Once he read it, he gave out a sickening gasp. He was dead. When his body was examined by scientists just a few rooms away from me, the thought of this caused me to vomit. They found that he had lost all of his internal organs, all at the same time. His death had been instant, but excruciatingly painful for a fraction of a second. The thing is, the woman next to him heard what he said and suffered a similar fate, only mouthing the words to the man next to her. He then shouted the words, only heard by the baby. The last woman was deaf and mute. The woman was terrified at losing her baby. She went insane, but did not show symptoms of the disease. She cradled the baby and wrote to the scientist, Why won't my baby drink? Why is he so pale? How come he's so cold? This was too much to bear. The card was shown again, and after reading it and mouthing the words to my best friend, died. Anyone who says the name of the disease, reads it, hears it, sees it lip read, feels it in Braille, sees it in Morse code, or click code, or any language, is instantly killed. Oh, wait a minute. What if I don't know Braille or Morse code? Or what if it's in Spanish and I don't know Spanish? Anyway, instant, although unbelievably painful, he said. He asked me if I wanted to know the name of the disease. I screamed no, covered my ears, and ran outside the door. When I peered back, my boss was laughing. He hadn't even said that dick. I went home, trying not to think about it. When I went to bed, I dismissed it as A, a crazy dream, or B, my boss pulling a prank. However, I felt like I was lying to myself. I couldn't help but feel that way. I couldn't get to sleep. I felt a churning in the pit of my stomach. My head throbbed like it was imploding, and I felt like as if someone had taken a sledgehammer to my shins. Deciding to call in sick, I rung up my boss in the morning. I explained to him. He just laughed. His sickening chuckle dissolved into a disconcerting giggle. He told me, okay, but I'd be missing out. It was in all the newspapers. Cockingham Laboratories shut down. All employees found dead. Company president Mr. B.H. Large found dead in office. No evidence of how deaths occurred. No weapons found. No gas leaks. Sign of accident. Only workers survived. C.W. Dickens stayed home sick. It's called instant death disease. I couldn't take it. I packed everything I could grab into a suitcase, smashed open my rainy day jar, the contents of which amounted to about 60 pounds and stuffed the notes and coins into my wallet, which now felt like a lead weight. I started up my car, cranked up the radio. Regardless of what was on, I floored it. I drove as far as I could until I had almost crossed the border. My radio buzzed. This just in. From Culkingham Laboratories' case, the dead seemed to have no internal organs. There was no sign of laceration wounds. It's as almost as if their internal organs simply vanished. It seemed instant, but recordings, CCTV, and a 3-letter message scrawled by one of the employees may prove that it certainly wasn't painless. I crammed the CD in and slammed the pedal, doing a half-ish U-turn? L-turn? And went for the countryside. I drove and drove, aimlessly following roads roughly north. I didn't stop until I ran out of gas, where I grabbed my case and ran. When I entered a field and I couldn't carry my cases anymore, I threw them in a ditch. As long as I could run, I ran. I didn't sleep until my body dropped. I awoke, tired and groggy. My bones aching. I knew I had to run from what I knew. There was a virus going around. I knew exactly what my boss had done. He had shouted the name of the disease over the loudspeakers. Everyone who heard died. Some tried to block their ears, but the words flashed on their computers. The lights blinked in Morse code. Everyone in that building was now dead. The terror they must have felt. The split second of reality-bending agony. All the friends, the men and women I used to know. I am now sleeping in a hotel room I found. It's far away. It's old and quaint. I think I'll be fine here. They don't have a TV, and I always stay away from the radio. I'll live. I know the harrowing truth, but I can't tell. I have a name for this disease. It's simple. It's blunt. It does exactly what it says on the can. I call it instant death. Oh, what a chip! It just turned me into a maraca! This disease sucks. Anyway. Yeah. A disease that instantly kills you. You know, there are other diseases that can do the job. Also, why bother? Why bother making this disease when a weapon or a gun can do the job just as fast? Also, this is kind of like a parody of Monty Python's The World's Funniest Joke, where a joke is so funny, anyone who hears it laughs themselves to death. Snow at Mount Silver. Ooh. Yeah, anticlimactic. Ooh. Ooh. Snow on Mount Silver. Sure. But first I'm gonna get a drink. I'm thirsty. Okay.
Anyone for a Chantado smoothie?
Okay, now I'm double hydrated. Okay, Easter egg. Snow on Mount Silver. So my brother and I, we kind of grew up on Pokemon. Around here, a lot of kids did. It worked out perfectly for us too. Every time a new gen came out, one of us would get one version, one of us would get the other. And since our mom liked to spoil us, we both got the third one. This is going to sound, at first, like a bittersweet story about two siblings who grew up with a couple of games and eventually take them down two different roads. Well, it's a little more than that. The years rolled by. We kept collecting. Game Boys got old. We replaced them. Cartridges finally gave out. We picked up new copies. But we started down two completely different roads before Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald came out. The Around then, my brother got a Game Shark. We had heard all about these hacks and cheats you could do with them, even if they were kind of late to the party, and they sounded awfully cool. Our first guinea pig cartridge was my brother's old blue version. We just dicked around with it a little bit, nothing major, but whatever we did fucked the cartridge up. After just a couple of code entries, it glitched out It glitched out completely and became unplayable. Naturally, we were upset at first. My brother mourned the loss of his hours of work, and I was sympathetic. I told him, it's okay, we can replace it, I guess. Stupid Shark was a waste of money. But here our paths finally differed. After seeing the mess it had turned blue in the blue version into, I had become opposed to the idea of hacking or cheating any of my games. What can I say? I'm a chick. I feel feelings for the little pixel critters. At least with that Game Shark. But my brother had taken his game's destruction as a personal challenge or something. I don't think he ever played a game after that which wasn't hacked somehow. Yeah, we played a shit ton of Pokemon, man. But for us, there really wasn't much else to do. We lived way out in the country without many other kids. And the farmers didn't want us on their property, so we played Pokemon out on the lawn just about all day, every day. It was pretty awesome to us, at least. We lost the Game Shark when our rooms got moved around. A new addition was built onto our house, and it disappeared in the mess of shit that got stuffed into the new closet. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald arrived, and after playing through them once, we were both in agreement that they were definitely lacking in comparison to the last gen. We both tried another honest playthrough, and though we managed to finish it, it left us both yearning for some good old-fashioned nostalgia. Where were our old gold, silver, and crystal cartridges, though? It took us probably a month to dig through the boxes we'd been too lazy to open up before. But we finally found one full of shitload of our old electronics. My old purple Game Boy Color still worked. His red one could no longer hold the batteries in place. Both of our GBAs were fine though, along with our snake lights and link cables. That one with the nifty little connector in the middle that I had always wrapped up oh so carefully to avoid burning the wires and condemning it to the trash like our last cable. We both grabbed up everything we could. It was so nice to have Yellow, which had been my first and most cherished game of any series, not just Pokemon, and Red and Gold back. We went through the motions of checking our old files, taking in all the memories, and eventually we figured that Gen 1 stuff was just too nostalgic to get rid of. I restarted Gold. He restarted Silver. Immediately, he snatched the Game Shark out of the box and slipped it into the GPA. I just shook my head at him. I remember what I said to him. That thing will kill your game, you know. He never had like me preaching to him about abusing pixels. I shut my mouth after that. But it had put him off from playing with me. I guess it was just one time too many or something. I didn't know to keep my thoughts to myself, really. It was a couple of days later that it happened. I was on the porch, Game Boy in hand, just about to go into the Elite Four, when I realized I needed a little help. My team was ill-balanced thanks to my playing through for leisure, and at the time, I was no great trainer that could pull off gimmick runs. I knew that my brother had been 2 batches ahead of me when we last checked on each other, so I was hoping maybe he'd let me borrow a Pokemon or two just for this run-through. Now, the thing is that I'd spent the last 24 hours at a friend's place. I had literally come home, dumped my bag in my room, and crept out into the sun with my JBAA to play. I had no idea what he'd been up to. For all I knew, he was done with the game and onto a new one, which I figured was all for the better for me since he wouldn't need those Pokemon and I'd stand a better chance of nicking a few. So I got up and went into the house, and when I was crossing the living room, I noticed all of his Pokemon games lying on the floor. Some of the cartridges had been mangled, like they'd been hacked. Like they'd been hacked at with something sharp. Even his blue version, long ago dead and too sentimental to throw away, was lying with the plastic cup ragged, split almost halfway up one side, completely unusable anymore, even if it would have worked. I was a little scared. This had to have happened this morning, otherwise our mom would have seen and they wouldn't be lying on the carpet. Tucking my GBA into my pocket, I crept over to his room and found the door unlocked. Somehow, that was even more concerning. I walked in and found my brother sitting on the edge of his bed. His GBA was in pieces on the floor at his feet, smashed to bits. Next to him on the bed were a hammer and her mother's gardening scissors. His face was paler than I'd ever seen it, even whiter than the time we'd gone corning and the old guy up the street, legally blind and raving nutcase, had come and chased us into the trees with a shotgun. It was now, I also noticed the Game Shark on the ground and a silver cartridge corner poking from under his bed. Somehow, they had been spared the wrath of the hammer. Are you okay? I asked. I remember the chills that ran through me. It was my brother. Seeing him like this was horrifying. Oh, thank you, Smithy. It was awful. I remember him rasping, and the way his voice rattled made my knees weak. Oh God, white everywhere, and then black. I remember running over and hugging him, and I remember his limp arm fell and brushed the Game Boy in my pocket, and his son screamed right in my ear, making me jump and bite my tongue by accident. He ripped the handheld from my pocket and hurled it at the far wall. I cried out at the dent the plastic system made there, running over it to collect it. The screen had gone dark, and though I feared the worst when I flicked the switch on, it powered up normally. I waited there in the corner, trying to pretend that GBA mattered enough not to go and run for our mom. The volume was on. The Pokemon theme started up, and he screamed again, picking up the hammer. This time I screamed too, and ran from the room with my GBA clutched to my chest like a shield. He ended up in the psych ward of the hospital for 2 days. When I went to visit him, I left my GBA alone at home. No one could figure out what had set off his strange manic behavior. There was some talk that I didn't understand at the time about some kind of disorder he may or may not have. But even though Mom and I had collected and brought in all the cut-up cartridges to be looked at, Mom's idea, not mine, no one had even thought to tie it back to the game. Maybe that was my fault. I hadn't said a word about what happened when he had accidentally touched my Game Boy, or the blind white terror he had been thrown into when the music had started. On my last visit to the hospital before school, on the second day, I was left alone in the room with him while Mom had some private talk with the doctor about precautions to take should this ever happen again. I sat in the chair next to the bed where he was staring at the ceiling, but then suddenly, he sat up, making me flinch. "Hey," he told me, "Angie, go in my room when you get home." I didn't understand what he meant, and then I remembered the things we hadn't packed up and brought in. The game and the hacking tool under his bed. Get rid of them. Get rid of them. I don't want to play with them ever again. I'm 1 month old stale sugar cookies I'm eating right now. I want some. His voice was so weary and desperate. He sounded like an old man on his deathbed. My poor, damaged little brother. How could I refuse? I promise you, I'll get rid of them. Promise you'll get rid of them. Okay, I promise. I was carted off to school late. And through the whole day, I only had my promise to him in my head. I didn't know it at the time, but this would be the last time I could ever play the big sister role and help him out. I just had to get home and get rid of that game. But as the day went on, a sick curiosity started to go through my own head. What could have possibly have happened to that game that scared him so badly? I was scared. Myself. I just had to know. I had to. Or, not really. I got home and went right into his room, bent on uncovering whatever horror was waiting for me. Mom had since vacuumed the room, and the cartridge and Game Shark were no longer visible. I got down and crawled half under the bed, feeling timid but holding on to the promise I made as my badge of courage. Under the bed, there was enough dust to make me cough. Enough old Legos and various other toys that I couldn't set my elbows down without it landing on something. But I finally saw both objects. They'd been shoved into the corner on top of a notebook that looked too new to have been down here long. Unthinking, I grabbed the corner of the paper and dragged everything out with me, still wheezing from the dust, allergies and all. They looked so innocent, simple toys in a simple spiral-bound bunch of papers. When I set Silver version and the Game Shark on the floor, I took a closer look at the notebook. On it were scrawled at least 25 different cheat codes, but one had been scratched out with a Sharpie over where it had initially been drawn in with pen. This was confusing. He had really tried to erase it out. The marker had been pressed to the paper so hard that the ink soaked through most of the pages behind it, almost 2/3 of the way to the cardstock back cover. But pen has a way of sticking around. I picked up the notebook and tilted it backwards in the light, and the reflective surface of the Sharpie revealed the indents that had been left where he'd written. The code was an untangible mess of letters and numbers, but the words next to it confused me. Easter egg. Snow on Mount Silver. I can't stand these cookies, they suck. Stop eating them then. I remembered what he had said when I'd found him. He had been raving about white, and then black. Did he mean snow? Even though it was only August and the temperatures was still climbing to 90 degrees every day. A chill ran down my spine. Did I dare? I picked everything up and brought it to my room and laid it out on the carpet in front of me with my own GBA next to it. For a long time, I just stared down at it, and the longer I looked, the more maniacal Lugia's face became on the sticker. Like some kind of twisted grin, like it was daring me to find out what happened to my brother. He was a 14-year-old kid. Did I really want to tempt fate and risk ending up like him? I glared down at Lugia for a while longer. I had to see. I slid my gold out of my GBA and stuck silver in its place. It took me almost 15 minutes to compose myself and turn it on. Hey, Donovan! Damn it!
I mean, damn it! It started up normally. I left the sound on low, too afraid of what I might hear to keep it up the full way, and too curious to turn it the whole way off. The title screen was normal too, Lugia again, but somehow menacing, despite my common sense telling me it was exactly the same picture as every other time I had started up the game. Shut up. How bad could this be? I asked myself. His note said Easter egg. Didn't that mean that there was coding already in the game? The menu came up, still absolutely normal. His character was Blake, with a mostly filled Pokedex. But the time was odd. 99999. I knew he couldn't have been playing that long. I had barely logged 50 hours on my own game, and I was at the Elite Four, and I was playing slowly. Probably the result of his fucking up his file, I thought. Well, whatever then. The game started up, and the first thing I noticed was the prolonged black screen. It took almost a minute for anything to change, and there was no sound at all. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up already, but it was too late to turn back. Finally, a very dim sort of map came onto the screen, but it looked like static. What was going on? I squinted down and realized with a fearsome pang that it was actually the Mount Silver map, but what I thought was static was heavily falling snow. So this is where he last saved his game. I checked his party, a very normal team for someone who'd been using Game Shark, Typhlosion, Relegator, Meganium, Pidgeot, Tyranitar, Lugia, all level 100 with modded moves. Typical for him. Something about the sprites was strange though. They seemed sullen. In a way, their colors seemed washed out, and their expressions lacked the usual vigor they normally had. I chalked this up to missing pixels or something. Also, due to the hacking. Yeah, sure. The map had brightened up just a smidgen when I closed out of the start menu. Indeed, snow was somehow falling very heavily. Pixels danced across the screen so fast it was hard to see the little sprite that was my brother's character. Something was off about him too. When I checked the information, it was the same as the Pokemon sprites. The colors were dull. In fact, now that I thought about it, he almost looked frostbitten. My stomach tightened. I turned and tried to move back around the mountain. As I hit the bottom of the screen, words popped up, and there was finally a sound. My sprite hitting an invisible wall. I can't turn back now. That was unsettling. I went into my Pokemon and tried to use Pidgeot's fly ability. I can't fly in this, obviously referring to the snow. Fuck this, I thought, going into his bag. There was an escape route. I tried using it. I can't go back anymore. But what was going on? Once again, I tried to walk back down the mountain, and to my horror, the words changed with every attempt. I can't run away. I can't go back down. I can never go back. This last one sent a frigid feeling through my heart. There was no way down the mountain. I had to climb. Turning the little sprite around, I moved him forward. No resistance at all. Though my walking speed was oddly slow. What was really weird was the lack of grass, of trainers, of anything at all but that white snow, which still blew across the screen and it made it almost impossible to see. As I moved further up the mountain, his walking became slower and slower. The static curtain of pixels grew thicker, so that I could barely make out the features of the map. But it seemed like the only way to move was straight ahead anyway. I reached what looked like a set of stairs at the very top edge of the screen. I didn't remember this being there before. As I tried to move up, the little sprite paused. I'm cold. By now, even I was getting goosebumps. His walking speed had become painfully slow, as if somehow he was being impeded. Up the little staircase, more text on the screen. Meganium has died. What the fuck? I thought. Pokemon don't die in these games. I checked in my party, and I was frightened and confused by what I saw. Meganium Sprite had been replaced by a red X. All my other Pokemon sported varying degree of damage. Though I hadn't battled once. I went into my bag and found a single revive and tried to use it. It was too late. It's too late, it said. What kind of Easter egg is this? There wasn't much else I could do. Trying to turn around yielded the same message as before. So I kept moving. Pidgeot has died. I checked again. Sure enough, there was a little red X. This time I selected it and looked at the Pokemon itself, trying to figure out what was wrong. I wish I didn't. The sprite was mangled. Pieces of it were missing. What was left was splotched with thickish blue-gray color, and its eyes were solid black pit. I flipped down to Meganium, same deal. A missing leg, a chunk of its neck, most of its head, save that pitch-black dead eye. Morbid curiosity urged me forward, and the path never deviated from the straight, upward road I traveled the entire time. Along the way, every now and then, another party Pokemon would die, and examination of its sprite would show it was in the same condition as the others, until all that was left was Typhlosion. One more staircase was up ahead. I climbed it, braced for whatever horror awaited me. I hit the summit. It was deserted. Red was nowhere to be found. The snow had stopped falling. In the very center of the map was something sticking out of the snow. It looked like a Pokeball. Okay. Maybe all of this creepy shit led up to some climactic final battle using whatever was in there. If I picked it up, maybe Red would come out of hiding. I walked over and examined it, and there was a burst of static noise from my game that made me jump. Ugh. Nose. What appeared on the screen was a battle animation. My trainer sprite appearing, his skin tinged blue. Another mangled Pokemon sprite. It was Celebi. In the center of that black hole, that was his eye. A single red dot burned out like an ember. The thing looked rotted. I didn't even throw out my mostly dead Typhlosion before it moved. Celebi used Perish Song. A screech came out of my GBA. I almost dropped it as the screen went white. Part of me was relieved, thinking that my final Pokemon had just been KO'd and I would be transported to a Pokemon Center, but I was wrong. My sprite reappeared in what looked like a cave. Was I now inside the mountain? I checked my trainer card and felt sick. The sprite was just as mauled as the other Pokemon had been. A light gone, a single eye remaining. Pitch black and so sad looking. Tears welled up at the corner. And every color on him was replaced by those thick shades of frosty blue and gray. Every stat on the card was reduced to a 0, except the time, which still read 99999. I quickly moved back to the map. His sprite there mimicked the horror. it had become on the trainer card. Pieces were missing. Everything was discolored. I started trying to walk, and the first message I received was, "It's so cold." There was only one direction to go, upward. I moved on, and every now and then I would be stopped by a message that made my heart sink lower and lower. "Mother, it's so cold. I can't go on." The walls as I walked became darker and darker until they were pitch black at the end. There was an exit there, marked only by a white outline. I had no other choice but to go through it. It opened into a chamber that was also solid white. The only way to distinguish the walls was a thin gray line that marked them as separate from the door. Against the far wall, there was another sprite. Red Sprite. Intact. I had come this far. I had to finish this. I walked right up to him and hit A. The battle started. Red Sprites had none of the deformities that marred my own. The colors were the same blues and grays, but he was intact. He just looked extremely sad. His first Pokemon came out, Venusaur. It was just like my own had been, a level 0 with a speck of health. I sent out a Typhlosion, who had just 6 hit points left. No Pokemon made a sound when they were brought to battle. Venusaur used Struggle. There was no animation, just a single point of damage done to Typhlosion. Then the opposing sprite dropped off screen. Venusaur had died. There was no text asking me to switch out. Instead, there was just what I took to be dialogue from Red. His next sprite was Blastoise, even more mangled than Venusaur had been. It too struggled and died. After each round, there was an ominous ellipses from their trainer. Every sprite was more damaged than the last. His Espeon was barely distinguishable as a Pokemon. I realized somewhere he was sending them all out of order, which saved me one Pokemon for last. Pikachu came out, and it was grotesque. It too was discolored like it was frostbitten. It was missing an ear, half of its body and tail. Its head was mostly intact, but its eyes were much larger than they should have been, and glared out at me like pitch black windows into hell. But the thing that got me most was the giant smile that extended all the way to the edges of its head. Its health was somehow at 0, or at least it looked that way. My hands were shaking. I didn't get a chance to attack. Pikachu used Pain Split. Pikachu has died. Typhlosion has died. It cut back to an image of Red Sprite, and now it looked like mine. With his body so butchered, it looked like a carcass stripped of most of its meat, except it had those same soulless, deranged eyes as Pikachu. I finally understood what happened. They were dead. They were dead. And this sub-level of the mountain was the hell they now existed in. Red finally spoke. It's over. The screen flashed black and white for a moment. Use Destiny Bond. A horrible, hideous screeching started to issue from my GBA. The screen went white, and it shrieked at me, and I threw it on the floor and pressed my back against the bed. The horrible noise continued for several long moments while the screen stayed white, then went black. Then there was silence. It took me a few long moments, but I eventually stood up. I took the Game Shark. I took the notebook. I took that fucking possessed game. I picked them all up and carried them to the garage. I took them to the garbage can we had already set out for the morning pickup. at the end of our long, winding driveway, and I threw them in. When I got back into the house, I don't know what made me do it, but I picked up yellow version and then inserted it into my Game Boy. I think it was part of me determined to make sure I hadn't somehow been tainted as well. The music started up. The game played. I turned to my Pikachu and hit A. Its smiling face greeted me with an ear twitch and a big pixelated smile. A pleasant, normal smile. I turned my game off and spent the next hour crying on the floor. You pansy! My brother and I never played a Pokemon together again. He gave it up for good. I stuck to replaying my comforting, unhacked games. That winter, the snow fell thick. So, I guess the moral of this story is, don't hack? I don't know. But one thing I will say, if you're gonna write a scary story, make the protagonist a little smarter. Especially when it comes to, like, horror media, like scary episodes, scary games. All these could be avoided if you just turn off the TV, turn off the game, or whatever. But no, stay, because I just have to know. I don't know. Let's see. Do we have any more? Because we can probably do a few more. Let's see. What would be a good one? Eyeless Jack. Oh, yeah. I remember that guy. And... oh. Where is it? Huh. I can't find it. Okay, here it is. Eyeless Jack. Alright. Hello. My name is Mitch. I'm here to tell you guys about an experience I had. I don't know if it was paranormal or whatever stupid words people use to describe supernatural phenomena, but after that thing visited me, I believe in that paranormal trash now. I believe in it, but I'm still gonna talk trash about it. Okay. A week after I moved in with my brother Edwin, after my house was foreclosed, I finished unpacking. Edwin liked the idea of me moving in, since we had not seen each other after 10 years. So I was excited too. I soon fell asleep after I moved in. After that 1 week, I heard rustling noises coming from outside at about 1 in the morning. I thought it was a raccoon, so I ignored it and tried to sleep. The next morning, I told Edwin about it, and he agreed. The next night, however, I thought I heard my window opening and a loud thump, as if something entered my room. I darted up and looked around my room, but I saw nothing. The next morning, Edwin dropped his coffee cup when he saw me. He held up a nearby mirror, and I saw myself. I had a large gash in my cheek. Ow? After I was rushed to the hospital, my doctor told me that I must have been sleepwalking, but then he showed me something that made my blood turn cold. He lifted up my shirt to reveal a sewn-up incision where my kidneys were. I stared into his eyes, my eyes widening. You somehow lost your left kidney last night. We don't know how, though. Sorry, Mitch, my doctor told me. Okay, hang on. How did he manage to pull that off? Like, no way. Come on. Okay. The next night was my breaking point. Around midnight, I woke up to a truly horrifying sight. I was staring face to face with a creature with a black hoodie and a dark blue mask with no nose or mouth staring down at me. The thing that scared me the most was that it had no eyes, just empty black sockets. The creature also had some black substance dripping from its sockets. I grabbed the camera nearby on the mantle and took a picture. After the picture took, the creature lunged at me and tried to open my chest to get at my lungs, I'm assuming. I grabbed my wallet. Oh, I stopped it by kicking it in the face. As soon as I ran out of my room, I grabbed my wallet. I would need the money. I ran out of my brother's house into the night. I eventually ended up in the woods near Edwin's house and tripped on a rock. I fell unconscious and woke up in the hospital. The doctor entered the room, the same doctor who treated me. I have good news and bad news, Mitch, the doctor started. The good news is that you had minor injuries, and your parents are going to pick you up, I said with relief. The bad news is your brother has been killed by something. Sorry. My parents took me back to Edwin's house to collect my remaining belongings, which I did. Upon entering my room, I was scared, but remained calm. I grabbed my camera, then stopped dead in my tracks. In the hallway leading to my room, I saw Edwin's body, and something small lying next to it. I picked up the small thing and entered my parents' car, not mentioning Aaron's corpse. I looked at the thing I had picked up and nearly vomited. I was holding my stolen half-eaten kidney. Some black substance on it. Yeah, how'd they know it was theirs? Also, what are kidneys responsible for? Oh, removing waste products from the blood. And producing ew. Maybe that's why it's half-eaten. Those things produce pee. Gross. No wonder they stopped eating it. Okay, how about... Oh wait. I know a good one. How many of you are familiar with I Hate You? Mature. That's to be debatable. Mario World. I Hate You. Nah. This isn't one of those haunted game stories. At no point are you going to hear me claim something within the game spoke to me, reacted to my words, or forced me to punch myself repeatedly in the face. Oh, that would have been fun. No, this isn't about a haunted game, or a game doing something impossible, or even something it shouldn't have. This isn't about a glitch, or a hidden satanic message. And at no time did I phone Nintendo headquarters only to have my questions answered with hushed whispers or anguished screams. This story is about a game feature I don't think anyone has unlocked. That's it. No ghosts, no conspiracies. Just a secret we were all supposed to find, but never did. Something that changes an entire generation's childhood and the very essence of a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Yeah. This is about what I assume to be a previously undiscovered alternate ending of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. In 1996, I received my first computer as a birthday gift. I'd been on the internet before, had used computers before, but I'd always been in school or at a friend's house. This one was mine. All mine. I explored the crude, prehistoric web of the times with great interest. I downloaded all sorts of pornography and even printed it out, which made absolutely no sense. Was that really necessary? I also pirated media like a madman. Music, games, anything. This is where I first discovered Mario World. I never had a Super Nintendo as a kid, so it was all new to me. I downloaded tons of games along with the SNES emulator, but Mario World was my favorite. For over a decade, the same Mario World ROM was my time-wasting hobby. I played it over and over again, beating the game faster and faster until I began to lazily explore the worlds with no particular purpose. Okay. Game Genie codes helped immensely, cause you suck. I could turn off the timer and relive a particularly entertaining map for an hour as I waited for a download or any number of boring events. It was in this manner that I must have beaten and rebeaten the game thousands upon thousands of times. There was a comfort in the obsessive-compulsive behavior of this routine. But all of that was shattered when I saw the Blind Boo. The Blind Boo, as I referred to it, was hovering over the exit from the haunted sunken ship level later on in the game. I call it blind because it had no visible eyes. It was like someone made a lazy ROM hack, but I knew upon years of experience that this was a normal game. The Blind Boo just hung there over the exit pipe, blocking it. I turned my back on it, but it didn't chase me. How could it? It didn't even see me. Then I noticed something else out of sorts. Well, I'll give it this. They got pictures. There was a key and keyhole above the exit. Key and keyholes, as such, are ways of ending in a level in an alternate manner and discovering a secret area. Still, this didn't belong here. And I knew it, because I played this game for like 10,000 times. For a moment, I considered the fact that I had actually broken a ROM file from overuse. After taking a screenshot, specifically to show all you Mario fans out there, I picked up the key and opened the door, figuring the game would seize up, and I'd have to restart. Instead, it opened up a new path on the map selection screen. A whirlpool next to Bowser's already creepy head cave thing. I pressed the right arrow, moved into the whirling drain. Oh. Oh, God, no! Pretty sure blood doesn't turn purple when it meets the ocean, but yet... This didn't really strike me as odd, because if you're familiar with Mario World game, there's an area called Star Road that you may note has similar names. Just stuff like tubular and awesome, and all manner of dumb words and phrases. Most of these areas were called Vanilla Forest 1 and Donut Mountain 3 and all that, but there were maps with odd names like that. What did concern me though was Mario's expression. Surprise? Shock? Fear? Lazily edited? I entered the map. Also, note how he has 8 lives here. Now it's down to 5. I'm just saying. Oddly enough, The whirlpool in the middle of the lake began with a standard castle entry animation. Mario walked up to the castle door, looked up, and went in. I could tell it was... Alright, Polars, you get to read this trash.
Fantastic. I could tell it was underwater, though, because of the bubbles that periodically emerged from the sprite's mouth and floated to the top of the screen. Inside the castle, it started to look more and more like I was in fact experiencing a glitch. Or a lame ROM hack. There was no room to jump, no room to do anything but run left and right. I must have gone right for 10 to 20 minutes just holding the B button and running along at full speed. After a while, I ran into one or two blind boos in the darkness above. Then 3 or 4. And the screen was full of them. They just kind of hung there, doing nothing. They wouldn't chase me if I turned my back, as with the previous blind boo. If I made any noise, like Mario's jump sound, they would just kind of shudder a bit, like they heard the sound of Mario's movement, but they couldn't do anything about it. Then something made me stop and turn the other way. Now I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this map was designed specifically to screw with the player. Not because the giant bleeding Bill was hemorrhaging profusely from its face, but because it was inescapable. There was literally no way to avoid being killed by it, as you can clearly see above. That is, unless you're like me and you have the Game Genie cheats on hand. I switched on the code for permanent invincibility. I let the bleeding Bill chase me for a while when I was invincible, just to get a good look at that thing. I stopped and killed it with my invulnerable touch, only when I saw a message that hadn't been there before when I passed. I hate you. That kinda creeped me out, but on the other hand, it was kind of interesting because it meant this was definitely a map that was supposed to exist. There was some sort of plot element here. Something undiscovered. What did it mean? Who hated me? King Koopa seemed the obvious answer, or maybe it was just a ghost. When you're in a haunted castle that you found by way of a haunted ship, a bloody-looking hate message isn't so unbelievable. It is when you're in an E-rated game. I saw it again as I approached some giant boos. I was thankful that the blind boos ended at this point, because the more I watched them shudder, the uneasier I felt, almost empathetic towards them. That thankfulness ended when I turned my back on the giant boos. And this happened. Giant boos with faces I hadn't seen before. They always looked mad at being awake and angry that you were invading their haunted houses across the Mario World Island. This was different. They looked gleeful, demented. You could see right down their throats, which seemed odd given the lack of detail their mouths would usually display. And yes, of course, I'm going to address that message you saw in the picture. Why won't you die? I don't know. Am I supposed to? Who's asking? I let the giant boos touch me, and they died like the bleeding Bills, of which I had encountered too. Despite any attempt to scare the player, I knew that being invincible meant invincible, no matter what they threw at me, unless it was a bottomless pit. After a while of running down this strange claustrophobic corridor with no more eventful happenings, I came to a room with an exit pipe. Taking the pipe downward, I came out the other end and dropped into a room filled with water. Water made sense, this being a sunken castle beneath a whirlpool and all. I was rewarded for my troubles with the question mark block that released a mushroom for me. I could have easily done this with a cheat code, but the thought it had escaped me as I faced all of these new and strange sights. The first creatures I encountered in the underwater portion of the castles were thwomps. Unless you've been living under a rock since the mid-80s, you know thwomps are stone-like square creatures that hang from the ceiling and fall whenever you come near. They try to crush you, essentially. Well, these thwomps lined up in a tight row, up repeatedly and randomly, with no real trigger or sense of logic. They would just wait or drop whenever they feel like it. It also looked like these thwomps had been very successful thwomps. Also, I like how you went from 5 lives to 41. Definitely not edited. More cartoony blood. This was getting pretty unusual for the Mario Bros. Franchise, which I hadn't recalled seeing blood in at all. Now I've seen it used 3 times. The bloody bills, the messages, and these perpetually smashing, grinding thwomps who are working the victims into pulp. Forever. In the hampering effects of the water, I walked slowly under these things, making sure every single one touched me and died. There were almost 30 of them in a row. The sight of them mindlessly crushing over and over again just made me hate them with an unsettling intensity. What's weird is that the blood caused Mario to slide as if he were on an ice level. Okay, side note from the artist, blood is actually kind of sticky. It wouldn't make you slide. This is coming from her father, which is apparently a doctor. Fancy. After walking through that gauntlet of depravity, I swam into a more open area that was filled with spikes on the floor and ceiling. It was difficult to swim in this matter without touching the spike. But since I was still invincible, I didn't think much of it. I avoided them more for fun than any sense I'd be damaged. It stopped being fun really fast, though. That's what happens when you catch a glimpse of a doctor's training video. Apparently, doctors have their own, training videos on, certain operations. I'm just saying that having a father who's also a doctor has its benefits. Okay, it stopped being fast, though. Also, he lost a few lives in between. He lost, 7 of them. I thought he must have fell through some pits. Knew some of what was going on. The bloody messages the thwomps were... The bloody mess the thwomps were unendingly spattering. It was other Marios. Past Marios that had tried to reverse this level and fail. I had to admit, this was an excellent touch. Even if it was a bit ghoulish. Whoever had designed the map actually broke the 4th wall and showed you the bloated, motionless abortions of the player's own careless treatment of Mario's tiny life. The bodies only floated straight up and down a tiny bit, as if to show the effects of a light current. It was genius. I couldn't believe I might be the first and only person to see this. I toyed with the idea of taking more than one screenshot I just presented you. Basically so all of you reading this could enjoy the secret map as much as I had, especially this weird touch. But... 62 lives now. Without swimming Without kicking or moving in any way, the dead Mario started to come at me like torpedoes. The faces remained blank and blue and dead, but they moved with astounding speed. They angled and positioned and worked all sorts of unique trajectories that left me almost nowhere to move. They continued coming at me and swarming back up to try again, and I just couldn't bring myself to let them touch me. I moved with more speed and skill than I've ever exerted, frantically trying to keep Mario free from the drowning victims that seemed dead set on rocketing straight into him. When I finally reached the purple exit pipe you see above, there had to have been 10 of those things right behind, pitching, turning, and chasing me. I entered the pipe as fast as I could. Thankfully, that it worked properly and had Mario out of that situation in a heartbeat. The corridor that followed was empty, thankfully. It was just a blue underwater hallway of sorts with nothing to avoid or kill. It was boring and predictable, like the game had been all these years, which brought back a sense of safety. At the end of the hallway, I came to the standard pair of doors you'd enter to face a final boss. Besides the doorway was a power-up. I didn't touch that shit. And now we're back down to 48 lives. Going through the doors was as you'd expect. The typical change of map view occurs, and Mario was standing on the ubiquitous bridge over boiling lava. Or had it been blood all along? No. When Mario walked out onto the bridge, however, there was no boss creature. Instead, Mario looked to side. I couldn't control him anymore. He just stood there. Keep looking until you see it. Oh, you mean the fact that he's down to 9 lives now? Or is it because of that thing? Gee. Hard to pick which one's the strangest. I didn't even see it at first, so I don't expect you to notice it right away. If you still haven't spotted the thing, look in the third window from the left. Gee, thanks. FYI, that's not usually there. Mario seemed to regain his composure and looked back and forth slowly. You're right, they could have. Actually, when was this? When was this written? Okay, Mario seemed to regain his composure and looked back and forth slowly, surveying the room. There was still no boss. I still couldn't control him. So I stopped trying and watched. This went on and on for what seemed like forever. Nothing happened, and I was really close to turning off this stupid game. Then a familiar face walked in from the right, dressed in green, tall, and angry. It was Luigi. Mario recoiled in horror. It's difficult to say that without thinking how crazy it sounds, but Mario really reeled back with a sort of terror that was uncharacteristic for such a happy-go-lucky mascot like him. Then Luigi spoke. You thought Koopa worked alone? Also, you also ran out of time. It was all connecting now. The messages scrawled on the walls. I hate you. And why won't you die? Luigi. He's always been Mario's second banana. The player too. The one who doesn't get the princess in these early games. No matter how identical he is to Mario in skill set and ability and tenaciousness and bravery, at the end of the day, the game is Super Mario Brothers. And he's just the brother. How he must have hated Luigi. I mean, how he must have hated Mario. Who among us wouldn't? Think about it. No matter what happens, Mario always comes back. No matter how many corpses he leaves littering the battlefield, he's always there once more to leap and cheer and get all the adoration. And Koopa hadn't worked alone. I didn't know what it meant at first, if anything. But again, you just have to think it through. How exactly does King Koopa consistently succeed in kidnapping the princess? From day one, from the original Mario Brothers onward, it had always been an inside job. Or the princess just has lousy security? I don't know. Still, unable to control the character, I watched Mario simply cower in fear as Luigi leapt high into the air, as high as he could in Mario 2, the bastard child of the franchise. I'm sure. He jumped on the pathetic, weeping Mario again and again and again. I was powerless to stop it. When he was done, he seemed to look at Mario's slim body with this overwhelming rage. Look how mad he is! You thought his death stare in Mario Kart was bad? This is next level. Oh my god. Then the bridge started to disappear. Soon Mario would be dead. As I looked on, I had an irrational thought. Would In be permanent? Would it be permanent? Well, a lot of things happened. With an instant, as Luigi turned to seemingly strike a victory pose like he'd beaten the level, Mario awkwardly got to his feet and took him by surprise. Fear and sadness and confusion had given way to anger, and Mario overpowered his brother with little effort. To this day, I'm still haunted by the result of his wrathful reprisal. Oh God, no! There was the map's title. None of this was a glitch. None of this was a mistake. It wasn't a developer getting back at Nintendo, and it wasn't a ghost haunting a Nintendo cart. It was planned. It was a planned, purposeful part of the Mario Bros. Mythos. If you beat the same level X number of times, a secret part of the world opened, and you learned that from Mario Brothers through Mario Land, Luigi had secretly been working against you and was in fact facilitating the repeated abduction and abuse of the princess. But why? Money? Power? No, it was all there. Because he couldn't take not being the one in the spotlight. Not being Mario. After he died, well and truly died, Mario just sat on the edge of the bridge and wept. Also, there's no reference to this at all. Okay. I was forced to watch this for minutes on end before the screen faded to black. I played the rest of the game through to see if anything changed. Nothing else odd happened, as one would expect, since this whole ordeal was just to be part of the actual full story. I couldn't access the whirlpool again. I'd seen the events once, and that was all I was apparently allowed. It was back to the game as usual. The same exact game I played since the 90s and would probably continue to play for the rest of my days. Well, it was the same, except for the final image. Well, at the very least, his clothes still held up okay. Mario doesn't look that mad. He just looks annoyed, if anything. Pray tell, what would have happened if you played in two-player mode? Would the betrayer be Toad? But yeah, that was I Hate You. And for a while, this was actually real well-renowned. But I guess we just got smarter and realized it was okay at best. Okay, one more. We will do one of the artist's actual favorite one. Okay, maybe not through this website. Here it is. It was kinda dumb. The Russian sleep experiment. The artist admits that she liked this one. At least until she thought about the ending. Alright, the Russian sleep experiment. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books and cots to sleep on, but no bedding, as well as running water, a toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised, falsely, that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic events in their past. The general tone of their conversations took a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering into the microphones and one-way mirror portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, hello Spooky Bee, we are reading the Russian sleep experiment. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber repeatedly, yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight, at which point he continued to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior was how the other captives reacted to it, or rather, didn't react to it. They continued whispering into the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. of the whispering into the microphones. After 3 more days had passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since the thought it impossible that no sound could be occurring with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercoms inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the people that were afraid. They were afraid were either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a calm voice respond in a single phrase. "We no longer wish to be free." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately, voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices begging, as if pleading for the life of their loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chambers were open and soldiers were sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 test subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking it and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscles and skin torn away from their bodies. Destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart and lungs and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the ribcage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact, but had been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tracts of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. The subjects themselves continued to scream to be left in the chamber and begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fell asleep. Yeah. Do you want we should stop? We can stop if you want. Or do you guys want to continue? All right, let's just finish this. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped off, and another was gravely injured by having his skip that one. I don't even have those, but that made me scream. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of a morphine derivative and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. His heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he bled out, to the point there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone with it in reach, and just repeating the word more, over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative that they had given him to prepare him for surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even through the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist. It took only a little anesthetic than normal to put him under. And the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. The muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had 9 broken bones in his struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscle had exerted on him. Roll for dexterity, hello! We are reading a lot of creepypastas right now. We are on the Russian sleep experiment. So how have you been? Let's give a shout out. Shout out to Exter. Oh, I can't shout you out, but welcome. Okay, we are knee deep in the Russian sleep experiment. So, hope you enjoy. The second survivor had been the first group. I'm doing okay, but my neck hurt. Ooh. Yeah, get some rest for that. The second survivor had been the first of the group of the 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought to him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested, reluctantly, that they should try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon proceeding stated repeatedly that it should not be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched, so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other two test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared the system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. The only response was, "I must remain awake." All three subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their projects, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the gas chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for a long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that, at this point, all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all of his might. First left, then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off of his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired to the EEG machine, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if they were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on paper scrolling out the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw the man's eyes slip shut at the moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining test subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flatlines as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed the gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed, as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. "I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you," he screamed at the man strapped at the table. "What are you?" he demanded. "I must know." The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven that we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart, and fired. The EG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. So, nearly free. Yeah, that is actually just a Halloween decoration. A pretty hardcore one, but yeah, that was the Russian sleep experiment. The artist said it was good up until the ending. She thought it would have been better if they just turn into animals. I don't know. But wait, what's that? Wait, she wants to end this with... I think she wants to end this with a gorilla. Oh wait, what was that? What was that one? What was that one copy pasta? The guerrilla warfare creep copy pasta. She said she wants to end this stream with that being read by Donovan. Would you guys like that? Should we end this stream with reading the guerrilla warfare? Hey Donovan. She wants you to read something stupid.
Okay, but first we're gonna change the music into something more fitting. We'll change... Let's change it into some... Okay. No, it wasn't this one. Here it is. Okay. Alright. What the fuck did you just say to me? Fucking say about me, you little bitch. I'll have you know, I graduated top of my class in the Navy SEALs. I have been involved in numerous secret raids on Al-Qaeda, and I have over 300 confirmed kills. I am trained in guerrilla warfare, and I am top sniper in the entire U.S. Armed Forces. You are nothing to me but just another target. I will wipe you the fuck off with precision, the likes of which has never been seen before on this again, fucker. As we speak, I am contacting my secret network of spies across the US, and your IP is being traced right now, so you better prepare for the storm, maggot. The storm that wipes out the pathetic little thing you call your life. You're fucking dead, kid. I can be anywhere, anytime. I can kill you in over 700 ways, and that's just with my bare hands. Not only am I extensively trained in unarmed combat, but I have access to the entire arsenal of the United States Marine Corps, and I will use it to its full extent to wipe out your miserable ass off the face of the continent, you little shit. If only you could have known what unholy retribution your little clever comment was about to bring you down upon you. Maybe you would have held back your fucking tongue, but you couldn't. You didn't, and now you're paying the price. You goddamn idiot. I will shit fury all over you, and you will drown in it. You're fucking dead, kiddo. Okay, that was, That was, the gorilla something or another. Hope that was worth it. Okay, so I think we can call it a night here. We actually saw that on DeviantArt once. Someone actually got spooked by it when it was making its rounds. Oh, that was fun. I just hope the neighbors didn't mind. But anyway, yeah, I think now's a good time to end here. But hey, stay tuned tomorrow. We'll be venturing through VR chat, through some spooky worlds. Because we got Halloween off. How about that? So you know what? Thanks for stopping by and having some fun. So, like I said, Halloween, we're gonna be on VR chat. We're gonna look through some spooky worlds. But in the meantime, yeah, brush your teeth and all that. Catch you guys later.